Hi, folks. Steve Urban here. Today's episode of the Riderflex podcast is sponsored by Marketing 360. My good friend JB Kellogg and his team do such a fantastic job for us and so many other companies. Marketing 360 is the number one platform for small business, and it's everything you need to grow your business. If you need marketing support, I really encourage you to contact them at marketing360.com/Riderflex, and we'll add that link to the description of this episode for easy reference. On today's episode of the Riderflex podcast, we have guest Joe Mann, Vice President at CloudMinds, whose mission is to operate smart robots for people. I really enjoyed chatting with Joe and getting his thoughts on how technology and robots will affect all of us moving forward. Fascinating conversation. I think you'll enjoy it. Thanks so much for tuning into the Riderflex podcast.
So yeah, I was born in Kansas City, and so is my wife. So I grew up in Raytown, Missouri, and my wife grew up in Lee Summit, and so we started a family here. Met in college, and then kind of traveled around the world together. So we were lucky enough that we had a job offer. I had a job offer in Texas, and Beth followed me and came down there. And we were in San Antonio for 3 years, from 2008 to 2011, and it was a great time. I mean, I'm looking out my window right now, and we've got 6 inches of snow, and it's 30 degrees. And San Antonio, I could wear shorts all year long, and ride my bike to work every day of the year almost. So it was quite a it was really nice.
And you got your MBA. You got your MBA while you were down there too, right? You went to. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. I went to San Antonio, University of Texas at San Antonio, and did not do the executive MBA program. I did the traditional. So 3 hours sitting through class 2 nights a week for 3 years.
While you were working full time. While you
I
had
was working full time, and while I had three kids, age 6, 8, and 10.
Oh, okay. All right. I lived in Austin for a while, so I know what you mean. It's the summers are nice down there. The winters I prefer Colorado. The summers I prefer Colorado. The winters I preferred Austin.
Yeah.
But you're right outside of Kansas City now. That's where you live now, right outside of.
That's where we live now. Yeah. And we made a slight detour before we came back. We lived in Copenhagen, Denmark, from 2011 to 14.
Wow. Okay. And what was that for a job too?
Yeah. So the same company I worked for in Texas, their global headquarters is in Copenhagen, Denmark, and I got the opportunity to be an expat and live there. So it was kind of a funny story, just getting over there. It happened really fast. So I met the new boss of the department, and in June, and by July he said, "Hey, look, it's kind of your right place and right time." And honestly, I mean, that's so much with any job, with any career. You've got to make it, but you got to be. It's a right place, right time situation many times. And so he said, "Hey, you have kind of the skill set we're looking for. You seem like a good guy. Would you like to come, move to Denmark?" And I said, "I've got 3 kids and a wife, and how do and so we had to figure out school, moving, find a house, transfer, get passports and visas and immigration applications. And we had to do this all in like 35 days so that the kids could get moved over there and start school on time. And so that was crazy. But we actually moved over there. Oh, we loved it.
Did you? Oh, really? Really? It was cool? Okay.
We loved it. No, I mean, it was tough at first. And there'll be Danes. Typical expression in Denmark is, it's really hard to make friends with the Danes, but once you do, they're friends for life. Cool. And so at first it was tough because they're not superficial like American. We'd say, "Oh, we should go to lunch sometime." Yeah, let's go to, and then you never hear from them again. Right? A Dane, they will not say that. If they say, "Hey, we should go to lunch," it's because they really mean, like, the next thing they do is take out the planner and, like, when are we going to lunch, right? So if you are told something by a Dane, they mean it, And
That's cool. Yeah. Why'd you move back? Job? Or did you get or you missed family?
Well, we were on an expats, program, and it was a 3-year contract. We could have extended a couple of years, but my oldest son was just starting high school, And we had the kids away from grandparents for 6 years. And so we said, look, let's try to get back to KC, get the kids closer to nieces and nephews and grandparents before they all go off to college. So had the opportunity to, my company was very supportive, and I left them, but stayed in the industry. So we actually work together still in a partner capacity sometimes. And yeah, I've been back for 5 years now.
Okay. And of course, it's been exciting times in Kansas City right now with the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I guess that's a big deal around.
I should actually go put on my Chiefs shirt. Is what I should have done. Yeah, no, we're pretty excited. I just flew to California earlier this week, and I had a few people walk by me on the airplane or somewhere and go, "Hey, go Chiefs!" And luckily I was in Southern California, not Northern California. But I had a lot of people kind of give me the 49ers are going to get you guys, So it's
50 years. I had an old friend of mine from Oklahoma. I grew up in Oklahoma, and he grew up in Oklahoma City, and he was a Chiefs fan. I've known him for 35, 40 years, and he texted me that night, and he's like, I'm in a state of shock. He's like, I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. 50 years have gone by. We're finally back.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. It's pretty exciting. I mean, yeah, no.
So tell me this? How did a history major? By the way, did you major in history or English? Sorry, English.
Close.
Did you? Sorry, English. Did you major in English because you thought you were going to be a teacher? What were you going to do with that?
Yeah, no, I was. At the time, I thought, you know what, I want to be an English professor and inspire the youth. And oh, Captain, my Captain, Dead Poet Society, right?
I see. All right.
That's kind of what I wanted to do. And then I started student teaching and realized, maybe someday, but I don't have the patience for this right now.
And then somehow you figured out, you kind of knew, all right, did you see yourself, all right, I'm an ops guy, or I'm a sales guy, or I'm a little bit of both? Kind of, you just kind of transitioned into that function?
So I've always been interested in just about anything.
Okay.
But I don't like to get stuck in. If my job was to sit behind a desk all day and stare at a computer screen, I'd go crazy, right? All right. But there are times where I'll make a 15 page spreadsheet with macros and programs, and I can do the finance thing, I can do the contract thing where I edit, which the English skills come in great for contract negotiation, legal drafts, reviewing all those things, right? Putting together distribution agreements or whatever business agreements. So I enjoy doing that, but I also love sitting in a meeting room with folks and trying to figure out a problem strategically, trying to brainstorm, working with a group. And so, it doesn't really matter to me what the role is, as long as I can mix up what I'm doing on a daily basis, and of course feel like I'm making a difference and feel like I'm, work with a great team. So that's really what I look for in my everyday.
When you were going to school back in the late 90s, did you think you were going to work for a robotics company or at some point? I mean, probably never dreamed of that, I'm guessing.
I never dreamed that I would be, a professional janitor, and I never dreamed that I would, sell robots. So no, I mean, and now I'm selling professional robots that clean toilets, right? So, and actually, I'm not. Actually, they don't clean toilets. That's the biggest demand. If we could make a robot that cleaned a toilet, it would actually be the most, revolutionary thing.
It is so funny you mentioned that right now, because I was just in the kitchen getting a cup of coffee before this meeting, and my wife goes, "Are you interviewing that guy with the robotics company this morning?" I'm like, "Yeah," and she goes, "I just don't know if I'd want one." And I said, "You don't want a robot that would clean the toilet?" And she goes, "Well, yeah, maybe."
Exactly.
So tell us, walk us into CloudMinds. Tell us kind of how you got there. I think you've been there for maybe a year or a little less, maybe. Well, tell us how you got there, and then maybe give us a company overview if you don't mind.
Sure. So I joined CloudMinds about 6 months ago, and helping them commercialize products for North America.
Okay.
So that's my main role is kind of sales and business development for North American market, specifically for the FM industry, and FM is facility management. So if you think of commercial real estate or any kind of professional facility. So it could be hospitals, universities, healthcare, acute care, long-term assisted living. It could be office buildings such as high rises or multi-tenant space. If you look at education, you have universities or public schools or private schools. It goes on and on. There's hospitality, hotels, retail, everything, right? Any kind of professional building that needs service, services provided to it. So, cleaning services, catering services, security services, administration services, HVAC, right? Landscape, snow removal, recycle, waste, everything, right? So that's really my background coming from that industry, is the FM industry.
Okay.
And so, and I've ran crews that have across the world and across the U.S. And then moved into the procurement side, where I worked, kind of behind the scenes to support the operations with our strategic vendors. So, if you're a building service contractor who provides those services to buildings, you don't have an R&D department as such, right? I mean, your secret sauce is workflow. It's how do we make sure we have the right amount of labor and they're performing the job and the scope of work. And so they really depend on their vendor partners and manufacturer partners to say, okay, what kind of tools do we need to do these jobs? Like, if you're a landscaper, how do we select, what rakes we use and lawnmowers we use? And if you're a janitorial company, how do you select what mops you use or brushes, brooms, et cetera, right? So I moved into that procurement side and then began working with a lot of our manufacturer partners to identify, how can we bring innovation to the market and how can we work with our operators? So I looked at operations as my customers.
I see.
And I used to do operations, so I had that application knowledge. Where a lot of procurement guys, that might be, there's a lot of great procurement folks, but there's some procurement folks that are more analysts, and they kind of, hey, I'm a tactical buyer. I'm here to make sure I get the best price. What are the specs? But in this industry where your output is labor, that now you need something that impacts that. So it needs to be safe, ergonomic, reduce stress on the person's body when they're using it, right? Might be a cheaper chainsaw, but if it's not safe or it's too heavy or whatever, right, then it's going to cost you more in labor and workers' comp and everything else. So really I started, and when I moved back to Kansas City in 2014, I moved over to the manufacturer side, and I wanted to broaden my CV, get some sales and general management experience. And so then I ran the robotics division for one of the largest cleaning products manufacturers in the world. And that kind of is what got me into the robot. So we've been selling professional cleaning robots. So think of a, Roomba on steroids, right? It's the IntelliBot. So that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. And CloudMinds is that, I'm kind of moving back up the supply chain. So CloudMinds, what it does, it's our vision is to create a very secure cloud network that is a robot operator. So what does that mean? Our secret sauce is a thing called HARIX, and that is an acronym, HARIX. It stands for Human Augmented Robotic Intelligence and Extreme Reality. So what does that mean exactly? Well, it's the human augmentation that's going to help the robotic intelligence with this cloud to make robots smarter until robots can then become fully autonomous. Most robots in today's world, if you think of robots in manufacturing, there's very few consumer robots that are really true. I mean, technically a toaster is a robot. Technically an oven is a robot, right? Something, right? But if you say, with some kind of AI, with some kind of interaction, right? Most of those are in a commercial or even industrial setting. Think of robots that assemble cars or robots in Amazon factories, right? And so, but you still have to have a lot of human control, like local human control.
Gotcha.
So on site, right? Moving the robot from starting point A to B or whatever. And so what CloudMinds wants to do is say, look, we can put a module, onto your robot. We are manufacturer agnostic, right? So we have manufacturer partners, and then we put a module on there.
You guys are the brain. You guys are the brains that go into the robots that somebody else builds.
That's exactly right. And so we have a very secure, built on blockchain technology, low latency, on 5G network. It works on 4G LTE, but when 5G comes, that's really when it will go, because now we have a lot of modules that sit inside our cloud brain that can have facial recognition or speech to text or translation, all kinds of things.
So
then we actually have
the robot
yes.
is connected to the cloud, so it's just constantly getting fed and constantly improving and constantly getting new data and information just all the time. It's not like you buy the robot and then you have to like get a download later on to make it improve. It's just always.
That is the long-term vision, and there are some of our robots that can do that now. Most of the time we start with a vendor partner, though, they already have some robot that is able to operate autonomously at a local level, right? So it doesn't need a cloud, but eventually we want to say, look, take the processing power out of this local machine, right? Just put the sensors on it, input data, right? And then some processing, but like let all the thinking be done up here, the controlling done up here, right? It's just mechanics down at the bottom. So you free up space, you free up cost, and then now if this robot learns to do something, right? Now all the robots learn to do something.
And now that's what I read on the website on what you guys are doing. Now, is that not happening yet? That's the goal. You're getting there, or that is happening today?
Yes. So it depends on which product. It depends on which product, right?
Okay.
So we have a couple products that we have come very far in that are using the full scope of Herix now, of our cloud brain now. But there are still some products
is that Cloud Pepper and XR1?
Yes, exactly. So Cloud Pepper is XR1. But we have future versions, XR2, XR4, in the pipeline, right?
Okay, cool. All right, so just to summarize there for the listeners, then you guys are the brains behind these robots, and eventually they'll all just be connected in the cloud, and that's how they're getting their information and learning. That's where it's headed, pretty fast, probably.
That's where it's headed. Yeah, I mean, I would say the roadblock right now is not what we can do in the cloud. That's built. Like that's done.
All right.
The kind of the either bottleneck or the hurdle yet with technology is we need to have very low latency, right? So we need to have 5G, right? So in some of the smart cities right now, we're working with local municipalities around the world where you've got some cities that are becoming a smart city where they've already started 5G, and now you can have, because if it's thinking back and forth in the cloud, right, it's got to be fast. If you ask Siri a question, for example, or Alexa a question, right, you don't want to sit there and watch the thing, think while it goes up and comes back, right? So you got to have low latency, and it has to be secure, right? Security is important. Privacy is important, right? So the 5G is one, and then the other one is just simply the technology on the mechanics of the robot. So XR1 is very advanced. I mean, you've seen it, I'm sure, online. It can thread a needle. It can unscrew the lid off of a bottle. It can pour a cup of coffee. I mean, you think about the autonomous, the code and the sensor data that is required for. So if I pick up this cup of coffee and it's empty, I know in my head somewhere. I can't tell you how much this weighs. I can take a pretty good guess, like 8 ounces maybe, or something, with the cup and the water put together. But if it's full, it's probably 16 ounces. Okay. So I need to grab it just a little bit harder, right? And I can't just, and if I think it's really heavy and I start to lift it up, but it's really light, I'm going to go, whoop, right? So the robot has to instantly start to grab, barely pick up the object, realize how heavy it is, identify with its camera eyes, is this glass? How thick is the glass? How hard can I grab it before it crushes? Or is it plastic? So it has some flex, and that's okay. I mean, just the simple act of picking up an object.
Wow.
The robot has to think, and we know this. We instinctively learn this when we're 6 months old, because we pick up blocks and we pick up little toys, and then we put them in our mouths and we chew on them, and right. Robots don't. So they learn this, but it's robots don't have the subjectiveness yet, right? Where, we're like, well, it's kind of this, it's kind of this. Everything's gray with humans, right? Robots are black and white, it's zeros and ones, right?
Oh,
so how do you program, right?
Who are you selling? So right now, are you selling Cloud Pepper and XR1? I'm looking at the website as we talk too. Are you selling these units? Or wait a minute. Okay, no, the units are sold by another company, but you guys are how does that work? So are you the sales guy that sells them? I don't know.
Okay, sure. We have agreements with different folks. So we can sell. We also have distribution partners that can sell as well, right?
I see.
Yeah.
And people are buying. Yes, people are ordering XR1s right now.
It is mostly commercial. It is not residential, right? Not private at this point. There are some very rich folks who say, hey, I want to have this robot, but the functionality from what it can do in your home is still a little bit limited right now until technology gets better, right? It cannot cook a meal for you yet. It cannot scrub your toilet yet. I mean, we do believe with the how fast technology is moving and what we've got in the pipeline, it'll be there, 5 years, 6 years, maybe 10 max.
That leads me into something I really want to talk about. I want to spend some time on this if you don't mind. So
Sure.
You think within 5 years I can go to Amazon and order my XR1 for my house? Is that your guess?
It would not surprise me at all. I mean, that is our plan. That's our goal.
Okay. All right. And
now the amount of functionality, I mean, the same thing like when Alexa first came out, right? For example, I use Alexa as an example, right?
Okay.
When Alexa first came out, it's functionality, it's the amount of apps you can put on it or whatever it's called. I don't know. I don't use Alexa, but you know what I'm talking about. How many things you can put onto it, whatever they call it, right? Tools or something, right? It was, a book of this many. And now it's like this many, right? And they're finding more ways every day to lock into them. I've got, Alexa on the Sonos back here, and Alexa can now control your Samsung, stovetop, right? So it's just growing more and more. And I think that's what you're going to see with any type of automated solution, AI. You're going to see. So, XR, it's not going to be XR1 5 years from now. It's going to be XR5 or XR10 or whatever it is, right? And it will be smart, and it will have. We will have agreements with, Samsung or LG or whoever, so that it can actually go over and it knows the stove, and it doesn't have to actually push the button on the stove. It'll just, think. Like we have robots right now that walk up to an elevator and they don't push the button on the elevator. They just,
wow.
There's a wireless interface, and the robot just walks up, and effectively what it's doing wirelessly is just going door. Yeah. But you don't see that, right? And then the door opens, and once that door opens, the signal goes back to the robot that says, okay, the door's now opening. So the robot says, okay, I don't have to push the button anymore. Then it gets on the elevator and says, 41111, and so, and then it goes off on 1, right? And the elevator says, you are now on floor 1. And then the robot will go to 2, and then 3, and then 4. So we do have robots today that go in and go up on their own, that have been integrated with the elevator manufacturer. That's happening right now today.
That's happening right now today.
High-rise buildings, and they're like coming out, cleaning the lobbies, going back in, going up to the next floor, cleaning the lobby, come back up to the next floor, right? And then goes down to the basement, goes into the dock, and you're good. Instead of having to pay a person to do all that with the fan, right?
So that leads me into my next topic. Then and I'm sure you get this conversation over there in Missouri when you're talking to your buddies all the time. I'm guessing this comes up. So let's talk about workforce and jobs and all these. And by the way, this is not like I'm not trying to pick on robotics or anything. I just know in conversation,
sure, no,
this comes up all the time.
It is a fair conversation.
I get people people ask me about it all the time. I was just a friend of mine is a truck driver and we're having beers, and he's like, man, I'm glad I'm almost retired because I'm pretty sure trucks are going to drive themselves like all of. So yeah, talk to me about that. Like when you're visiting with people that say, damn, Joe, you guys are going to you're going to put everybody out of work, and where are all these jobs going to go? And what do you say to all that? How do you respond?
There's a lot of responses. Number one, I would say is this: the overall work. I mean, you need to look at it both from a macroeconomic standpoint and a micro standpoint.
Okay.
Right. So what I'm going to tell you now is a macro standpoint.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Overall in the world, we have an aging population. The
Yes.
population is growing, but in most developed countries, so you think of U.S., most of Europe, Japan, China, Australia, New Zealand, most countries in South America, you have an aging population. There are less young people being born, right? So your average age is increasing over time, right? Because people are having less children, or they're waiting later in life to have children, right? Which means you have less young people to fill jobs, right? That's number one. You have an aging population.
That's true. I mean, my wife works in retail, and she just hopes they're going to show up for the shift. They're always short staffed, always. Anyway,
always right, exactly. And so you have an aging population. So you have less young people to do the job with a still growing population. So you still need the same function, right? You still need as many McDonald's and Sears stores or whatever, I guess not Sears anymore, but whatever.
Yeah.
So you still need the same amount of retail outlets and the same amount of restaurants to support the population as it's growing. It's just you have less, say younger people that typically took those low skilled, lower paying jobs, right? At the same time, the young people that you do have today, they are very, very good in technology. The millennial generation and the Gen Z generation that's after them, right? They don't really have to work as much as we used to have to work, right? I mean, I got my first job at 14, and I rode my bicycle down the street and applied for a job at Carlito's Mexican restaurant that was ran by an Italian guy, and that's what I did for $3 an hour, for the first 2 years until I was old enough to get a real job when I was 16, and I've worked full time ever since. And I mean, kids nowadays, they're just like. They don't really have to work. So not only do you have an aging population, but you also have less people willing to do the janitorial jobs or food service jobs, right? I mean, Singapore is an amazing example. And then I think, okay, so let me go one more step on. So there's aging population, and there's less, young people that want to do it because they're more into, technology and those soft jobs. But then you've also got, and we don't want to get too political here, but it can be a political conversation, but we can keep it very neutral. Whether you believe in that immigration is good or not, whether you like the fact that and not just in the United States but anywhere, there is a rise of nationalism around the world, right? Germany, a lot of nationalism going on right now in Germany. Because of a lot of the issues with Syria and the Middle East over the last 5 years, they had to take a lot of refugees, and there's a lot of folks in Central European countries and Northern European countries, Scandinavia, that say, look, we don't want any more immigrants, we can't have any more immigrants, and a lot of political groups now are running on, far right political groups are kind of taking that banner, look at EU with Brexit. Brexit was all about nationalism, all about immigration, it was all about people coming into UK to take jobs, right? I mean, if you look at, how Trump won, I mean, build a wall, right?
Yeah. Mexicans
are coming over to take our jobs. If you look at Singapore, small island nation at the tip of Thailand, it's about 6 million people. There is no native Singaporean person. I've been there 7 or 8, 10 times in the last 8 years. It's a beautiful country, but it's a very wealthy country, right? Yeah. There's only 5 or 6 million people, but they're kind of the financial hub of APAC. A lot of very well-educated people, a lot of money in Singapore. I don't know if any Singaporean person works as a janitor or as a food and beverage, behind the counter. Everybody comes over from Malaysia across the border.
I see.
And then they go back across the border at night to go home.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And but now you still have this rise of nationalism in Singapore that's been going on for the last 5 years, where every year the government's cutting down the amount of worker visas by 5 or 10%, because there's groups in Singapore that are upset that these guys are coming to take jobs. They can't find people to do the jobs. They're like, no, we need these guys to come over because none of you guys want to do the jobs. And you see that same thing, here in the United States too, right? So teenagers don't want to do the jobs. Middle-aged people don't want to do the jobs. the only people you're going to get to do these jobs are immigrants, but political groups are, cutting immigration
I see
down.
where you're going. I see where you're going. I got you. Got you. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So,
So the robots, we're going to need the robots, is what you're saying. We're going to need them. We do need them.
you have to have them. If you go to any janitorial company in the world, and I'm just going to say,
they're all short-staffed. Every one of them.
do you know what the average turnover rate is for a janitorial company in the United States?
250%.
You're exactly right.
I figured.
It is between 200 and 250%.
Yep. A lot of those guys can go home and make just as much money on unemployment. So they're like, why am I doing this?
So a lot of times it's a second job for them as well, right?
Too,
and so, and so they'll do a daytime job and a nighttime job, and then at some point they just get too damn tired and they okay, I don't need the second job anymore, right? Or whatever. So turnover is really high, and so for every one full-time person that you need in a year, you basically need to hire 4, because someone's going to quit, and it's HR costs. So if you can find the most repetitive job, and that's really where, like in professional cleaning, that's where, the most repetitive job is the guy who's standing behind an auto scrubber, walking up and down the aisleways. You've probably seen a grocery store or at a Home Depot or something, right?
Yeah.
So, that's what I did for the last 5 years was I sell those things, but without the person that has to walk behind it.
I see. Yeah.
And now you can take away that very repetitive job, but you still need people to do. So back to your very first question, these are going to take our jobs. Number one, I can't find people to do jobs now, these kind of jobs. So we're going to do that. But guess what? Now because we can't find people to do those jobs, now what we can do is take the guy who was doing this repetitive task and we can reallocate that labor, because the jobs weren't getting done in the first place, right? I mean, have you ever been to a building and thought, God, everything in here looks absolutely, when's the last time you went to a public restroom and thought, this thing looks great? Like, they must be on top of this, right? Right? I mean, occasionally there is, right? I probably have a lot of friends
rare.
Looking at me
it's
like,
rare.
We clean up. Yeah, a lot of friends in the industry are looking at me saying, Joe, we clean the restrooms really well. Yes, you do. There are great companies out there that do great stuff. But I mean, it is tough, right? And with the advent of not just, robotic machines, but robotic smart buildings, Internet of Things, smart buildings.
Yep.
Now you can have sensors in your washrooms that say, okay, the toilet just got flushed 15 times in the last 20 minutes. There must have been a plane that unloaded, or there must have been a conference room that just let out. And now it can send in real time to the janitor or the supervisor of that building, go check that restroom, right?
Wow. Now, I think, is this a fair question? And by the way, I can tell by the way we're talking about this topic that you've had this conversation with people like a million times. I lost you.
Yeah, exactly.
I lost you.
Yeah, sorry, hang on.
That's okay. Yeah, I can tell you've had the conversation like, a million times. I can just tell. Is this a fair question? How about this? So first of all, great overview right there. So what I heard you say was, hey, listen, man, this transitional period, at first, it's going to solve a lot of problems. All these shitty jobs that nobody wants to do, it's going to be super beneficial. It's going to help us. Now, and I'm listening to you say that, and I'm thinking, I agree. Okay, that sounds great. But then fast forward another 30 years where all of a sudden they're doing just about every freaking job, and they're available to do every job beyond the crappy jobs that nobody wants to do. Then what do we all do for a living?
All right. So just like when the computer came out and everyone said, oh, it's going to kill typewriters, and when this come out, it's going to kill this. I mean, the guy who used to, be the horse-drawn carriage builder and, shoe horses. When the car came out,
I knew you were gonna go down this path. Yeah.
so we don't have to beat that dead horse, literally. I mean, that's happened. We've seen over time as new technology comes out.
We adapt. We create new jobs.
And more jobs are created. I mean, how many IT people do you have now, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't survive with that IT department, right?
Yeah.
Oh, computers are going to kill jobs. Well, they also create jobs. But what they do, now if I can take another step forward, and I know this is a very altruistic view, but it will elevate society as a whole, right? Because think about how smart you had to be to operate a typewriter. Well, how smart do you have to be to operate a computer, right? And now everybody has computers. Everybody has phones. Look at children can use iPhones. I mean, which is a stronger and more powerful computer than, we had in our homes 15 years ago, right? And so my point is, as we advance with technology, if again, there's a lot of this, but if the governments of countries have educational systems, put in place to help people, right, and get out. I mean, there's a lot of socioeconomic things that have to also come along with this, but get out of poverty, get out, higher education. Now you're going to have a society that says, okay, look, we don't need to have people in these low-skilled jobs because we have automation that does that, but we do have a need for more jobs and higher skilled people across the board.
Yep.
So now you can elevate the standard of living for society as a whole.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And that's how I've visualized it. I've always said when I'm having this conversation with friends of mine, I've always said, hey, look, can you imagine? First of all, maybe we live in a society where everybody works 25 hours a week instead of 60 because we have robots that can help us out. So we got more free time to do fun stuff. And then when you are off in your free time, you're not at home dusting the curtains and cleaning the toilet and mowing the lawn because there's robots to do that. So now I can just get in my Jeep and go to the mountains of Colorado and have a good time because I don't have to worry about any of that other stuff. That's the whole point of raising your quality of life right there.
That's right. That's right.
I'm all for that. Matter of fact, I'll give you my address so you can ship one of those XR ones here right after the podcast.
All right.
No, I'm all for it. Yeah, I know people get weird about it. Okay, so Joe's not going to be that guy like in the Terminator movie where we have to send somebody back in time to take care of Joe because you created bad robots.
Exactly. No, and I'm certainly not the one creating anything. I am not the smartest guy in the room there. I just help with industry consulting. So
no, I think it's going to I can't wait. I wish we had one at home right now. Trust me, I would be. Yeah. I'm all for it. I am totally all for it. And by the way, that goes with the driving the cars and all of it. I'm fine with all of it. That's for sure.
Have you done, by the way, on a side note, have you just done the self-driving? Have you ridden? Have you ridden in a self-driving car?
No. Huh? What's that like?
It's crazy.
Is it?
I mean, we don't have a Tesla. My wife would love one. We do have an electric car, but I said, honey, we can't get a Tesla right now. But I got to sell a few more XR1s before we get a Tesla. But we did go take a test drive just for fun. And we got on the highway, and it was a curvy, it was kind of a curvy highway, right? And the guy was sitting next to me. Beth was in the back seat, and he's like, "All right, just push, auto drive or whatever the button was, right?" And I hit it, and it was just perfect. It was seamless, right?
Wow.
Stayed in the lanes. As soon as if there's a car in front of you, there's and a lot of cars now have adaptive cruise control, and lane assist. Right. Yeah. So, yeah. I have a Volkswagen Atlas, and it has both those things. So you put them both on at the same time, and it does pretty well. But if your hands are off the steering wheel for 20 seconds, it'll say, please put your hands back on the steering wheel. and it doesn't work perfectly. But like with the Tesla, you put the blinker on, and it'll wait. It'll find a gap in the traffic, and it will move itself into the next lane and then turn its blinker off. It is so to your point, yeah.
It makes life better quality. By the way, can you imagine the number of DUIs and accidents and everything else that will save? Holy cow! If I knew right now I could take one of those cars down into Denver because I live north of Denver. Like I said, sign me up. I'm ready right now. I'm all ready for it. Go ahead.
They are making it safer. They're making things safer, right? And at the end of the day, automation and technology, right? You want to make it safer, And so whether it's XR1 or whatever, think about some of the jobs that are extremely dangerous jobs.
Well, that's a good point.
If it's mining or firefighting. Just yesterday, right? We lost 3 firefighters, American firefighters in Australia with the plane crash, right?
Great point.
What if we were able to have fully automated airplane there with drones, right? That could do that. And if the plane crashed, then, guess what? There was no loss of human life.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. And let me ask you this, as we're getting close to the end here. Let me ask you this. So
sure.
If I'm a candidate and I'm listening to this episode and I want to be in robotics, I want to be in AI, and I want to get in that industry, but I can't I can't get through the door or whatever. I can't get into the circle of trust. What do you recommend for these people that want to work in the industry, but they're having trouble getting in? What do you say to them?
I would say there's probably two paths, two main paths.
Okay.
Now, if you say I really want to work hands-on with robotics, I mean, if you're in a finance department or a procurement department or some kind of what I would call functional, support department, like that's, you just be good at what you do and find someone somehow and do right. But if you say no, I want to work with robots, right? I want to be an application expert, an application specialist. I want to be a programmer, or I want to be a salesperson, to do that as well, right? Then I would say there's two paths. There's the engineering side where you're building it, R&D, development, right? And then there's the front side. There's the application side. And I know people who've crossed over. And so, what I would say is understand the industry that the robots are going in that you want to focus on. Right. So I'm a perfect example of I was an application expert on FM. I came from that sector, so I have a background in that. I understand the jobs. I understand the companies that provide those services. I understand the manufacturers that sell the products to those companies that provide those services, because I've been part of that for 20 years. And now I'm on the robotics side to say, okay, how can we bring robotics into this? So I'm helping talk to the engineers to say, how do we bring this in? How do we bring technology to this industry, right? So be good at something that an industry, whether you're an ops guy, management, sales, application, training, customer service, whatever. Then go find a technology company that's trying to solve a problem that exists in that industry.
Gotcha. Beautiful.
And then be their internal champion.
Great advice. Great advice. That's great. I appreciate you sharing that. I'll cut just two more questions really, really quick. I'm guessing a lot of people that work at CloudMinds work virtually. Is that accurate or no? Is that?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm actually kind of the exception.
Okay.
So I live in, I live in Kansas City, and but our office is in Irvine, California, and most of our we just recently moved. We had an office in Santa Clara, but we have an office in Irvine as well. Okay. And so that's our head office in the U.S. So most people work in that office.
Okay. I was going to ask you what your thoughts were about virtual work. I mean, at Riderflex, at our recruiting firm, every one of us live just about in different states, and we all work virtually. Do you think are we headed in the next 20 years to a world where all these giant office buildings where people used to sit in cubicles? Do you think those are going to be repurposed, and you think we're going to stop doing that eventually? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So my company, two previous companies ago, when I lived in Denmark, I worked for a company called ISS. They're the largest integrated service solution company in the world, 500,000 plus employees. And what we specialized on was integrating an entire suite of services and managing your property, right?
Okay.
And we built our new flagship headquarters at the time in Denmark to replicate the office of the future. And so it would be a flagship example. So we'd bring customers in to see this is how you can work today. Okay. So nobody has a hard desk, right? It's you have a little cubby, you grab your stuff, you just sit wherever you need to sit that day. You work with whatever groups you need to work with that day. I've seen a lot of companies who've tried to implement that, but then we are creatures of habit. And we find a desk, like the first day of school, you walk into, college class, you remember back in the old days, right? Yeah. And you walk in and you find a desk, you sit wherever you want, but then that's kind of your desk forever. Yeah. It's an unwritten rule. Like no one's going to sit there again, right? Unless, So, but we refocused really hard not to do that. We said, no, and there's always some good seats where the sun was perfect and whatever. Yeah, you had to get there early to get the good chair, right? But there'd be some days where you say, well, hey, I need to work with the finance department on whatever project I'm doing. So then you go find some desks and you sit together, right? And so we also promoted the virtual work as well. Okay. And we had smart conference rooms. You booked conference rooms and iPads on every door and that kind of stuff, right? So I don't see it. It probably depends on your industry a little bit, and it depends on the type of business you have. Okay. If you're field based, like I'm a field based sales, right? So I said, guys, I can move to California if you want, but 75% of the population is east of the Mississippi. Those are our customers. So I'm centrally located. I can get everywhere, right? And if I hire a sales team, it's going to be, well, we're going to have one here and one there and one here and one there, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think for the team of people the engineers, the finance and support staff, you can be virtual, but there is so many benefits to being together, collaborative. I've worked virtual now, remote for the last 5 years, and I know that there has been times that I could have benefited just personally from a career standpoint by being in the head office every day, right? The coffee talk, the water cooler talk, but not to mention just getting stuff done, right? Because now I've got to call someone, I've got to pound someone's email, I've got to, where I can just walk down the hallway and say, hey, Bob, have we gotten that thing done yet? Hey, Bob, oh, hey, that's a great picture. Weren't you on vacation last week? How was it, right? So you have a little more time and a little more personable opportunity to be personable when you're together. It's like, hey, why don't we go grab Fred and we all go jump in the, whereas if I'm remote and I'm trying to get 3 people in an office somewhere together to talk together, now they've got to go find a room. They got to call me. I'm not in the room. It's like, so I think it's very important to be, so I don't think it's going to go away.
You don't think
you might have some.
Okay. So you think it'll add a little more, it'll edge that way a little bit, but not completely. Okay. That's interesting. I figured your answer was going to be the opposite. I figured being a tech guy, you were going to be like, oh yeah, we're all going to just.
No. I try to be in the office, once every 2 weeks. Right.
Okay.
And like, I just got back yesterday from California. So it's just important to collaborate and to be a team, to be there. Right.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I appreciate your insights on that, man. This has got to be one of the most, I don't want to say the most, because then my previous guests will get upset.
Yeah, I
with
understand.
me, but super entertaining conversation, man. I could talk to you about robots and stuff for hours. I'm sure you, let me guess, when you're on a plane and somebody's like, hey, so what do you do? And you tell them you're in robotics and stuff, and boom, they start hitting you with questions, and you're like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. Well, so here's a funny one for you. So when I first, graduated from college and realized I wasn't going to be an English professor right away, I'm still holding on hope, though. I think I still may do that. That's going to be one of my retirement jobs. I got a lot of those that I want to do. I want to own a bed and breakfast. I want to own a canoe livery. Anyway, so so all the fun things that can't really support my life, but I want to do them someday.
Right.
But no, when I first graduated college and I just got lucky, and I just found some job advertised, and it was an operations manager for a professional janitorial company, and that's how I got started in the industry. Right. So I drove around at night all the time and made sure that the buildings were clean, the toilets were clean, and the floors were clean. I can tell you all kinds of war stories there, but then eventually I moved into procurement, and now robotics, right? So when my kids used to ask me when they were real little, Dad, what do you do? I say, I clean toilets, and then 5 or 10 years later, I said, Dad, what do you do? I purchase more toilet paper than anybody in the world, right? So I was the head of procurement for the largest janitorial company in the world, right? You know how many cases, billions of cases of toilet paper I purchased, right? Dad, what do you do now? I sell robots.
I said, like, how did you go from?
You're a lot cool, Dad. You're not cool, okay, but you're cooler. Like we don't mind telling our friends my dad's a robot salesman, but we didn't really want to tell him he cleaned toilets and he bought toilet paper. Right?
That is so good. That's so good. How old are your kids now? How old are they?
Oh, they're getting old fast. So my daughter just turned 17 on Tuesday, and she's my youngest. And I have 2 boys. One's 21, living in Fairbanks, Alaska, going to school up there with his girlfriend at the University of Fairbanks. He fell in love and he followed her, and we said, man, go for it. Have an adventure. You're young, get some perspective of life, do it, right?
Awesome.
And then my other son's 19. And he still lives with us. He actually just left an hour ago. He's commuting to the local college here. So
you're getting close. We're empty nesters, my wife and I, and so you got a couple years, 2-3 years. You might be. It is. I'll just tell you, it's. You'll be amazed how quiet it is when they all leave. You're kind of like, oh wow, it's like a library around here. It's super quiet. It's different, my friend. You'll have to call me. It takes some adjusting. It takes some getting used to. But anyway, Joe,
how old are you? So how old are you?
Mine are old. We have 4, and they range from 23 basically to 30. And
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, and they're all gone. And yeah, there was some moments where I would, come home and be like, oh, okay, so what do I do with my life now? I don't know.
I know I'm taking my wife out to dinner tonight, and we're going to go stay downtown at the hotel. I haven't taken her out on
Oh,
a date
cool.
night for a long time. So it's like a 45-minute drive to downtown. So once
Very
every, 3 or 4 months, right, we do
Very
that.
cool.
We're staying at the Intercontinental, and she's like, I don't know if we should leave. I haven't spent a lot of time with the kid. Like, she's got the mom thing, but she's kind of seeing that empty nest starting, right?
Yes.
And she's like, oh, so baby, come on, you need to relax.
Yeah,
we need
that's
to
good.
take you out.
That's good, man. Good, man. You're going to score some major points today. So tonight, that's great. Good
We'll
for
see.
you, Joe. Thank you so much. Hey, we'll get you the drafts and everything, and probably next week sometime. And I'll send them over and give us the thumbs up. Okay. I really appreciate you being on the Riderflex.
Sounds good,
man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Nice to meet you. Take care. The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.